The manipulation of Blake Lively is becoming clearer and clearer as we get these unredacted texts.
The world has long seen Blake Lively as Hollywood's ultimate golden girl. But the unsealing of new, unredacted text messages has pulled back the curtain on a reality that is far more calculated and frankly disturbing. As the legal battle surrounding It Ends With Us spills into the public record, these documents expose a masterclass in industry manipulation, where power is leveraged to silence opposition and rewrite the truth. It wasn't just about a film's creative direction. It was about a high-stakes campaign to paint a director as a villain, while using a co-star as a pawn in a hypocritical war. Today, we are breaking down the receipts that show exactly how Blake Lively allegedly played dirty to maintain her position at the top of the Hollywood hierarchy.
Jenny Slate, her co-star, I can't imagine is terrified of this trial, Kim. Given the stuff that's going to come out, given the pressure she's going to be faced, I kind of think it's so rude of Blake to put her under this pressure. But here's one just straight out kind of crazy thing that I want to start with, which is Jenny Slate is now, they're coming back from production, that first phase of the awful production, Kim, right? They've had their meetings. Excited to have you back, Blake is writing to Jenny. I think you'll enjoy it this time. And you don't need to hug anyone is the best part. Jenny, how wonderful, Blake. And he won't touch you, or he shouldn't. And I don't think he or Jamie will. And then Jenny's like, oh, did discussion happen? Like, how have you felt? Solid. It's a professional set. We're going to get back to work. So much to leave on. I'm so glad. I'm so curious to hear anything you've got to share. And then it really just feels like Jenny wants the tea, right? That's really what this reads to me. Not like she was really that worried. Now, here's the hypocrisy. You ready for this one? Cut to this article where she's promoting a film. And she says she gets a cold on a plane. I hugged 50 people at our screening in Chicago. And I'm hoping somebody there did, like, it's like someone not wash their hands. Well, it's a good thing people want to hug you. I love it. I love to hug. Were they for the movie or just hugs in general? It was at the movie. That's better than being shunned. Oh, yeah, no. I welcome hugs. This goes against the narrative. Because,
It
right,
does.
Kim, they're all this an overly huggy set. Oh, my God, I hate. Stop hugging me. But now Jenny Slate, in a public interview, is acknowledging how much she loves to be hugged. How much does this frustrate you?
It is frustrating. And I want to be clear, like, just because you like hugs, I don't think that gives you, like, carte blanche to be like, this person has to accept hugs from everyone always, no matter what, no matter who they are, no matter how you're feeling, etc. Her saying this is not, all forever and ever and ever consent for anybody to hug her. But what I am saying about this is that if this is the image that she has publicly, that like, I love hugs, and then you have someone like Justin that appears to love hugs, you would think that this would work. So it doesn't really, it feels weird. It feels weird. It doesn't really mesh. So I understand why there's some criticism here on this point.
The unsealed documents reveal a chilling look at the power dynamics on the set of It Ends With Us, specifically how Blake Lively interacted with her co-star, Jenny Slate. To understand this, you have to remember the Hollywood call sheet hierarchy. Blake Lively is number one, a massive global star married to Ryan Reynolds and best friends with Taylor Swift. Jenny Slate, while a respected actress, is number 4. In a town where reputation is everything, someone at the bottom of the list cannot afford to disagree with number 1. The texts show Lively leaning into this power, essentially telling Slate what she was supposed to think about their director, Justin Baldoni. Lively began the manipulation by protecting Slate from supposed unwanted interactions, texting her that she didn't need to hug anyone and claiming that Baldoni won't touch you. This wasn't just a friendly heads up. It was a way of planting a seed of fear. By framing Baldoni as someone who crossed physical boundaries before he even walked on set, Lively was priming Slate to view every interaction through a lens of unease. The documents show Lively using her management team to coordinate this narrative, ensuring that the whisper campaign against the director was locked in before production even resumed. Perhaps the most revealing part of this dynamic is how Lively seemed to ambush the director while keeping her co-stars in the dark. She explicitly asked Slate not to mention their private discussions to the director, claiming she wanted to salvage some degree of chemistry with him. In reality, it appears she wanted to ensure she and Ryan Reynolds could ambush him in a private meeting without him having any idea that a coordinated front was being built against him. This isn't collaboration. It's a tactical strike designed to make a director feel like a crazy person in front of his own cast. This leading of the witness is a familiar pattern in high-stakes celebrity disputes. By using her status to validate Slate's minor discomforts, like an improvised recording session, Lively was able to transform standard production friction into a narrative of alarming behavior. She wasn't just defending herself. She was building a federal court case by proxy, using Slate's name to add weight to claims that Slate herself seemed hesitant to fully embrace. It raises the question, was Slate a victim, or was she just a witness who was carefully coached into a smoking gun role?
But I think it's not so much having something to do with me that turned the tide. I mean, the reason to put the information out there is just because of who he is. It's the truth. It's just the truth. And the reality is that had there been these horrible things, and had there been these horrible text messages, had there been this horrible information, that stuff would have been put out there too.
The unsealed texts also expose a massive level of hypocrisy regarding the set's overly huggy environment. In court, Blake Lively's team has hammered the idea that Justin Baldoni's habit of hugging was a sign of a toxic workplace and unwanted physical contact. Lively even texted Slate to reassure her that she wouldn't have to hug anyone this time around. But the internet has unearthed a smoking gun interview where Jenny Slate herself admits to hugging 50 people at a screening and explicitly stating, "I welcome hugs." This contradiction completely destroys the narrative that the set's culture was inherently gross or stupid. If the lead actress is privately telling a co-star that hugs are a threat, while that same co-star is publicly declaring her love for hugs, the entire argument of sexual harassment begins to look like selective outrage. It suggests that a hug is only a boundary crossing when it's convenient for the power player on set to label it as such. For a jury, this level of inconsistency makes it nearly impossible to distinguish between a genuine grievance and a calculated character assassination. The hypocrisy goes even further when you look at the Britney Spears midsection incident. Lively and Slate mocked Baldoni for agreeing that the pop star's midriff was remarkable, calling his giggle alarming and crossing the line. Yet these same women pride themselves on their dark humor and blue comments in private. Lively's team frames Baldoni as fragile when he gets annoyed by their rewrites. Yet they are the ones acting incredibly fragile over a man agreeing that a world-famous athlete had great abs. It's a double standard that suggests only the women on set are allowed to have a sense of humor or a sexual opinion. This huggy set drama is a perfect example of how celebrity PR machines can take a positive, albeit informal workplace habit and weaponize it into a hostile environment claim. By ignoring Slate's own public statements about welcoming hugs, Lively's team was able to paint Baldoni as a goof with no boundaries. The documents show that Lively was actively downplaying the co-star's actual concerns, like the WGA strike and production leadership, to redirect the focus toward these creepy behavioral claims that better served her legal strategy.
You can't speak to people sexually while not in character or while talking about the character. We can't talk about the sexual elements of the characters from a book that is very sexually charged. When Blake herself has told her management previously, and we'll get to that eventually, if you keep watching our videos, of saying, it's about the sexiness, that it's important, blah, 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 for the story. So you did it to your manager. This is very confusing. The goalpost keeps moving.
Stay tuned, because we're about to drop a bomb on our next video about the fact that Blake literally mentions the fact that sexiness is critical to the film's success.
Yes. So
stay tuned. We're going to prove it. But we did this one first. But it's important because exactly right. They're complaining about stop saying it's sexy. But Blake said sexy herself, and even said on the record, you're going to see it, that sexiness is key to the film's success. But yeah, but Justin's overstepping. And if you overstep, you move on. It's the weirdness after that makes it feel bad. Like if we speak up, the vibes on set get funky and the work suffers. She can't see that maybe it's her reactions that's creating funkiness, because she can't see that actually she's misunderstanding Justin and they're not communicating at all. And why aren't you agreeing with us, Justin? You're making it funky for not agreeing with us. It's also fragile. I agree on that, but on your side too. Everybody's being too fragile here. I don't think Justin is. I think Justin's annoyed that everyone's being so fragile. It doesn't need to be focused on the work. Let's have a good time. Whose definition of a good time, Blake? Yours, right?
One of the most bizarre turns in the unsealed documents is a series of texts regarding a tiny bed at an Airbnb. Jenny Slate, clearly feeling the pressure to stay in Lively's good graces, sent a long apology for making a joke about Blake's living situation being bad for sex. Slate was so stressed that she had offended the Queen that she began to spiral, claiming she wished she'd never said anything, and worrying that she had opened the door to inappropriate behavior. It shows an actress who is so terrified of Lively's fragility that she is apologizing for a standard joke among adults. Lively's response was a masterclass in casual defensiveness. She told Slate there was no need to apologize because dynamics are different with women, and there is a safety with women that there isn't with men. This is the ultimate double standard. Lively had previously told Baldoni he was in a safe space where he could open up and bust balls. Yet here she is telling Slate that there is no such thing as safety with a man. She was essentially telling Slate that her joke was fine because she was a woman, but if Baldoni had laughed at it, it would have been odd and vital and desperate. In fact, Baldoni did laugh at the joke, agreeing that a family bed with kids in it was terrible for sex. Lively clocked this on his part, using a simple, logical observation to paint him as someone who doesn't deserve my casual defensiveness. This suggests that in Blake's world, a man's agreement with a woman's joke is interpreted as a strange overstep. She was literally punishing him for his lack of boundaries, while she and Slate were discussing their sexual lives in the same thread. It's a chilling example of how a feminist narrative can be used to justify the isolation and shaming of a male colleague. The texts even reveal that the production did fix Slate's living situation, giving her a better Airbnb because they wanted her to be comfortable as a mother. Yet, Slate still allowed Lively to frame the director as the source of dysfunction and dysfunctional behavior. This family bed drama serves as a smoking gun for how Lively played dirty. She took a moment of shared humor and used it to convince a co-star that their boss was desperate for approval. By the time Slate finished her apology, she had been fully led into the us versus him war that Lively was orchestrating.
Really concerned about all of this and really sad about all of it for everybody that's involved. I think he goes through, emotions that everyone goes through in these types of situations. But, he's a really decent human being and a decent person, and has really been very fair and not wanting to attack anyone, but he is, he's devastated as anyone would be.
As the unsealed documents dive deeper into the dysfunction, it becomes clear that Blake Lively was actively leading her co-stars away from their actual professional concerns. Jenny Slate was explicitly spooked about the WGA strike and the amount of improvising and rewriting happening on set, which could have violated union rules. This was a legitimate, work-related anxiety that could have affected her career. But Lively's response was to tell her, don't let them think it's just that it's the behavior, not the work. Lively was essentially coaching Slate to ignore the labor issues and focus on the creepy behavioral claims. She didn't want the studio to think the issue was the strike, because that wouldn't give her the leverage she needed to take over the film. By framing herself as an actual feminist who was concerned and offended by Baldoni's leadership, Lively was able to turn a production disagreement into a moral crusade. She used the term feminist as a weapon to gain power, despite the fact that she was actively rewriting a male director's work without his full consent. The hypocrisy reached its peak when Lively told the producer, Alex, that the work was really suffering because of Baldoni's fussy attitude. In reality, the texts show that Lively was the one being snippy and impatient, creating a funky vibe on set by refusing to communicate directly with her director. She then turned around and blamed Baldoni for the very tension she was creating. By labeling herself the actual feminist, she was positioning anyone who disagreed with her as an anti-women villain, a tactic that allowed her to steamroll the production with zero accountability. For viewers, this is the part of the story that exposes how Lively allegedly played dirty to rise in Hollywood. She didn't just outwork her competition. She outmaneuvered them by leveraging social politics and gender-based claims to remove anyone who stood in her way. The documents show a woman who was treating the work like her full-time job, but that work was as much about bullying behind the scenes as it was about acting. By the time the studio agreed that things needed to become way more professional, Lively had already won the war by manipulating her co-stars into joining her side.
We have alleged in our complaint that this was a takeover of a movie, and whether we find out exactly what the reasons for the takeover were and who was behind the takeover, I think that we're going to find some interesting documents when Discovery starts, and I'm looking forward to Discovery, because when you start to look into what was in Stephanie Jones's hands and what was in Leslie Sloan's hands and what was in Blake Lively's text messages, and what those discussions were like, I think we're going to find the answers to this really quickly.
As the public finally gets to see the unredacted truth, the fallout for the Lively Swift brand is becoming catastrophic. New revelations show that the safe space Lively promised her colleagues was anything but. Jenny Slate now faces the reality of being a hostile witness in a federal court case she never wanted to be part of. She is being forced to defend her tiny bed jokes and her huggy interviews under oath, while Lively remains insulated by her A-list status. The dirty game Lively played has left her co-stars holding the bag for a legal mess she created. The unsealed texts also suggest that the actual feminist narrative Lively pushed was a thin veneer for a high-stakes power takeover. The documents prove that the environment was funky because Lively and her team were ambushing the director and refusing to engage in professional miscommunication fixes. Instead of talking to him, she had her lawyers scream at him and held the studio hostage with a 17-point list of demands. This isn't standing up for women. It's a character study of how to use influence to crush a colleague's career. The press is now facing a reckoning for how they handled the original Lively as victim narrative. The unsealed evidence shows that the smoking gun of Baldoni's behavior was actually a series of overblown reactions to standard jokes and production friction. Journalists who were fed these stories are now seeing the receipts that prove they were being used by a PR machine. The backlash isn't just about the movie, it's about the entire smear machine that allowed Lively to play dirty without any public scrutiny for months. Ultimately, the unsealed evidence has destroyed the credibility of Blake Lively's claims of a hostile work environment. The documents prove that the environment was hostile because she made it that way, using her status to lead her co-stars into a conflict they didn't want. As the 2026 trial approaches, the world is finally seeing that the true source of dysfunction wasn't the man trying to make a movie, but the woman who used every dirty trick in the Hollywood playbook to take it away from him. Blake Lively's supposed evidence has exposed more about Hollywood's dirty power plays than Justin Baldoni's actions. The leading of the witness and the hugging hypocrisy have turned a harassment claim into a case study of institutional bullying, raising doubts about why Jenny Slate was ever part of this filing at all. Fans have called it a shocking betrayal of professional ethics, pointing out how the actual feminist narrative was used as a weapon for a power takeover. It's a reminder that perception can outweigh truth until the text messages are unredacted. Before choosing sides, we have to ask how many stars we defend because of their golden girl image, not because they've actually played fair in the shadows of Hollywood.